welcome back to another episode of Lowy here from Doc. I'm your host, Amanda Jopal George, and with me is Dr. the Right Honorable Keep Claudius Mitchell. So, Dr. Mitchell, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Of course, I had a beautiful weekend in New York, so I'm back and looking forward to our session today.
So, let's just jump right into it
Mm.
because we have a lot to talk about today. So, Doc, did you hear that Moses Ranks made a whole song inspired by one of your phrases? Don't call me Mr. Deacon.
That's part of the political life that you enjoy when you can say something and have that sort of impact that the Calypsonian could turn around and use it in a fun way. And that's part because sometimes politics is only about serious issues, and sometimes you get something you can smile about, but you're making a political point without being too that nasty or something like this, and therefore I had great fun listening to it. But I think it's an important issue that was brought out by that particular point, and I think that's really what one has to speak about. The message coming from this is that we are different persons. We have different tastes. That I said something like this, but also our political philosophy is quite absolutely different. I saw service in government as an opportunity to contribute. It was not about myself. In fact, I felt extremely uncomfortable when I'm in the company of any group of person and they start praising me. I felt uncomfortable. Always tell them, do it behind my back. Because it was not about me. I felt I was given the opportunity to contribute and to make a serious contribution to the people that I care deeply about, and of course that's our country, folks. And when I gave up all the opportunities in the United States professionally, was to come home to make a contribution, and I've never regretted that sacrifice that I made, because when you feel that you have done, you have affected people's life in a general sense, positively so. Not everything you did will turn out right, but in a general sense, and you feel that persons have demonstrated in a general way a sense of gratitude for that contribution, and you hear them speak about it. It's more than any amount of resources and material things that you can receive, and therefore I take it seriously. I don't see this in the same light as I see members of this government, how they operate. It seems it's all about themselves, and they seem to like the self-praise and the boasting about the fact they're better off today than they were years ago, when they were out of government, and giving a clear impression, and you know, the general perception is that politicians are corrupt. That's the general perception all over the world. You hear that, and therefore, when one makes statements like this, like some of the members have been making of this government have been making, it sort of reinforce that perception that you go into government to benefit personally, not about the people, to lift the lives of people in your society and the country as a whole. And it's sad that you don't see that many of them coming out and sending a different message or tone. And that is, I think that is what's so sad about the present members of this government. As I always say, I can't say all of them, but the ones who speak out and demonstrate that behavior publicly, it worries me, because it's sending the wrong message to young people, persons who might be considering the possibility of entering the political life. They would tend to feel that they wouldn't be heaped in the same bag as anyone else coming in, and that's I don't think they understand, many of them, the impact the negative impact they could have on the hopes and dreams of the young people of our country who may hear things but not necessarily understand it. But when they hear words like this from persons in government, it will certainly turn you away from any prospects of you may consider of getting involved, and that's unfortunate. And therefore, so when the Calypsonian take that message and comes out with it, while it seems like in a bit funny, it does send a serious message about what service is all about and why one should get into political life and so on, and that is the part that gets to me. So I was happy that I helped to create a calypso. I myself have played it a few times and enjoyed it more than anything else. Guys, so I always, respect many of the calypsonians, how the wit that is implied in many of the messages. Over the years, I hold a lot of respect for Black Wizard and how he spun some of the messages, and not in a nasty way, but making the point, but at the same time respecting the individuals whom they sing about, and they are Jamos, the Mighty Sparrows. These guys are, they may not have a powerful academic background, but the wit and the intellect and the way they use it in the calypsos to send messages is quite innovative, and I always respect that.
A high level of creativity.
Yes, no doubt about that.
You mentioned corruption. So a former government minister recently alleged that he probably was removed from his post after raising concerns about a large financial payments to certain organizations. What is your perspective on these allegations?
Well, the fact is, I think it seems to me that if I was in government and I was heading on a government and such an allegation was made by anyone, or information like this was brought to my attention, I certainly would give it serious thought, and of course take initiative to clear the air to the public, because if that message goes out there without being challenged, or the proof to the contrary provided, is provided, then it would damage the leadership and also the political organization in a serious way. But it appears that the issue of corruption is not treated seriously by those who guide this government, and that's unfortunate, because the resources of the country are not the resources of the politician. They will just in fact, they are guardian of the resources. They're protectors of the resources of the country, not the persons who own the resources. And it seems like, appears that some of them lack that understanding. And that's where the leadership has a responsibility to take steps to ensure that the people understand that this is not the pattern of this government, or this is not accepted norms of the government. But I don't see this happening, and that is something that clearly must be worrying to a lot of people in the country, and it's extremely unfortunate that you have this. I mean, you have with all kinds of allegations, and it seems to me that these things have to be treated very seriously, because when your image is damaged, you don't get it back overnight. Right. And I think this government is reaching the point, or has reached the point of no return in terms of the perception of the image as a highly irresponsible one in financial matters. And I just want to repeat, you don't have to go far. The fact is, when you look back, they met $500 million, and they said it. And this is not 500 million in resources, 500 cash in surpluses saved by the NNP government, which came into government meeting a complete empty treasury, where they had to beg Trinidad and Tobago for help to pay salaries at the end of the month. They came in, they met surpluses in addition to recurrent revenue of customs, inland revenue, which we were using to manage the country. So had we stayed there, you would have seen probably in a few years more, you see $300-400 million more dollars in savings, which could be used to build the capital stocks in the country and to invest in different initiatives that can promote development and jobs and opportunities in the country as a whole. So it is unfortunate that we don't see that priority being given to the development of the country in that sense, and it will pay. And as I said, $500 million they met. And they said, when you look at the numbers of CBI resources they said over $1 billion. So you came in, you made $500 in surplus, not recurrent what's coming in the treasury every month, which we are using to pay salaries and to be within government's normal commitments. So they met another $1 billion. And when Beryl hit the country because of the initiative we took and invested in insurance in case we have any disaster like had hit us on the island and we had no resources at all. The history of this country was never invested in something like CRIF. We did. They received in just 3 weeks $118 million. So all these resources were given, and you ask yourself where all this money gone, because now I understand their difficulties meeting certain commitments. Now, so the question is, where has all this money gone? They seem to not realize that they need a serious explanation to the people. So when ministers are boasting they are now debt-free, and boasting that they have solid resources now, they don't have to worry for the rest of their lives, they're almost speaking on themselves. It's like condemning their own selves. Going and it also tells you the depth of depth. They behave like little children that just came in and get some toys. And when we were young and your parents buy some toys and you don't want to leave it to rest. You know what I mean? They're so excited. That's how they behave. And unfortunately, you needed people in the team who will say, guys, stop it, or change path, change direction. And I don't know that is happening at all, especially from the leadership, because all the noises you hear where specific information is provided about a corrupt deal, and we know there are many others, rumors out there. We have not heard a simple word from the leadership of the country, and something that is out there as factual with checks being provided as proof. It is unacceptable, but that is the style of that government and the present government. Unfortunately, all of us are paying a painful price for what is taking place in the country at this time.
You mentioned two important things, that $118 million, but you also mentioned the savings that the NMP had acquired during your tenure as Prime Minister. I think it's also important to note that that occurred at a time when the entire world was experiencing a global cash crunch due to the pandemic. So I think that's very important to note here. Moving on, with the current government having access to that same $118 million that you just mentioned, do you believe enough has been done, especially for Carriacou and Petit-Martinique?
Well, we hear the stories from Carriacou and Petit-Martinique over and over. The claim of how many houses are built. People are telling they went and they checked the number of houses. Nothing compared close to what is being claimed. Similarly, in Grenada, we don't see houses. I know one was built in my constituency. Maybe they might say one is 100. I don't know what is, but it's quite, it's worrying that the people of Carriacou, they're telling you about the seriousness of the situation there. The fact that they know what happened to the $180 million that we had raised. I mean, this was meant specifically to help people rebuild after a disaster. In other words, most of it should have gotten to the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. And we heard stories that of inactivity or nothing has been done. So they don't seem to realize that you have to account resources. Where is this money? Where has it gone? And who is responsible for misspending those resources? One thing I would say, and I think I did mention at the last podcast we did, I'm concerned about the public servants who may be facilitating any deal, any action of the government that may not be above board, because the public servants must know, and particularly people at the level of the permanent secretaries of ministries, they are the accounting officers, not the minister. The minister would be held politically accountable, but not necessarily accountable in a practical sense. And they must understand that their whole character and the whole history is, as an individual, is being affected, and that is something I think wrong. In fact, we were being told early, when I got in the government, those who were there before tell you straight, listen, as a public servant, if a minister comes and tells you to do something, you have to know the rules. That's why you're appointed to those positions. You have to know the rules. You can't claim ignorance if an inquiry is called. And they ask you to do something, and you should know that it's not right to do. And therefore, if the minister insists, because he's your boss, you ask him to put it in writing. And anytime you ask a minister to put something in writing, he then knows what you're doing. He's not going to do it. I've had experiences where people refuse to do things ministers ask them to do, and when they ask the minister to put it in, you want me to do this? Well, put it in writing. They won't do it. That means they knew they were asking you to do something which was unethical, and that's it. So clearly that's an area of serious concern, and that I think the people of Carriacou, Petite Martinique, and Grenada have to call on this government to account for the resources that they have spent. Imagine I mentioned 500 and I mentioned $1 billion and 118. It means in bare cash alone, they had $1 billion, right? $618 million in extra cash outside of the normal monthly revenue generated by customs and inland revenue and other tax measures and other areas of government resources and some grants given by countries to help development of the country. These were additional resources. The question is, we're not seeing where these monies are. And that, I think, is something that they are not going to get away from. And they must understand that they will have to account accordingly.
Doc, we've seen a noticeable shift in the Prime Minister's stance on jab. Not too long ago, he said it was a bit too early to play jab, and now you're seeing him encouraging people, to say, take jab, take jab. I won't say the rest. And some persons has viewed that as trying to score political points, or simply say what the crowd wants to hear. But from your perspective, how important it is for leaders to be consistent and principled, especially when public opinion is involved?
First of all, I think it clearly was an attempt, knowing that the statements that he made backfired enormously. I think it's an attempt to make a joke of it. But to me, it was a clumsy attempt, and certainly I don't think anyone took it very seriously, because the fact is, as I mentioned to you before, when I did speak to the gathering of persons playing jab, such as a massive activity, that was COVID time. It was not about jab. It was a general statement made about gatherings, whether it's parties, whether it's social activities in your homes. This was not the time for major national celebration with massive amount of people exposing themselves to a virus that was killing people left, right, and center. You know, I recall watching a major U.S. channel one morning, and they show in Manhattan, Fifth Avenue, and all these places, Broadway, and the streets are completely empty. So if people in North America who normally crowd their streets doing all kinds of stuff, they were not there. It tells you that they understood the danger. So I was speaking to the danger. I was not speaking to the specific cultural activities. It just happened that was the activity to be taking place, and warning them to be careful, and that you should not do this. But here, this one, the statement made was that direct alluding to the specific activity of Jab Jab. And clearly, I think the Prime Minister now must realize that was clearly a serious mistake. And of course, it turned out to be in songs in the streets, so it just turned out to be extremely popular with people. So that is something I think that he will have to deal with. And kind of Jab is not, you don't play with Jab Jab. You don't play with that, because they will always have the last say. And that's one thing you understand. I understand it so well in my political life, that you don't take on an activity if you know how to end it.
That particular incident occurred during a celebration. Doc, have you ever celebrated an election win every single year after the fact? Because from the looks of it, this is year 3 of celebrations. It's like a never see come see moment. So what's your take on this kind of extended victory parade?
Well, well, to me, if I don't see how this government could be celebrating anything. In fact, by having an activity at the anniversary of their victory, to me, it's only an exposure of your incompetence and your mismanagement, or all the rumors we heard about corrupt activities. That, to me, you bring it into focus. It was better you didn't have anything, and so that people didn't get an opportunity to bring into focus what you're supposed to be celebrating. Your incompetence? Are you celebrating the pain of the people outside there? Are you celebrating the fact that most of your young people are totally disillusioned about what's happening in the country? Are you celebrating the fact that you are not providing a specific program for the young people who are unemployed outside there, whether it's male or female? Or are you celebrating the lack of serious development activities of your own nature? Are you celebrating the fact that you're trying to take all the programs the NNP had built and dealt with, and that you inherited, celebrating it as yours, and you can name all the programs, every single one of them, not one initiative that is out there now that the government is undertaking, that is going on. You can say it was initiated by you. I would like them to name one, and so it tells you something about the state of what's happening. So I don't know what they're celebrating, honestly. They could be selling, as I mentioned, maybe celebrating their own incompetence.
I think there comes a point when we should shift away from celebration and get into serious governance when persons are hungry. There is high cost of living out there, healthcare is in a mess, housing issues, job issues. I think they need to have a shift in priorities.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The word should not be celebration. To be some other word, as I mentioned, if you had made tremendous gains in a particular area, you can use the opportunity to celebrate, because you can't celebrate just the fact that you were victorious. in an election. You're celebrating the events after the victory. You celebrate the victory when it occurred, right? So you did so in June 2022. But every year afterwards, you should be celebrating all the activities that you had in fact succeeded in bringing to the country, that has in fact improved the lives of the people. And you should be proud of doing it. But you're celebrating the same victory. That's what they're doing. And so I think they're a pretty confused bunch as far as I see. And that's why we'll continue. They keep talking about me all the time, but I have to talk. I have no choice talking at this one, because when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing after you sold yourself in a package of goods, that's perfect. And today people seeing the complete opposite. You have to pay the price for what you did.
Doc, we're about to wrap up, but we've been seeing a troubling rise in suicides lately, especially among our young people, and that is often tied to mental health troubles. In your experience, why do you think this is happening, and what advice would you give to those who may be silently suffering or to the people around them?
Well, it is very disheartening to hear of persons taking their own lives, and that happens when you lost hope, and when you see no sense of opportunity for the future. So you've given up on life, knowing that is one life you have. So it's the responsibility of those of us in the society who understand the problems to work together to come up with initiatives that can in fact provide some hope. And we've always, when we were in government, whenever we sense something happening in the country that is informed by the problems that we face and affecting particularly the young population or any part of the population, we never took it on ourselves to say that we have all the answers. The first thing we did was always call upon our social partners. And that's why we had this construct. I had monthly meetings with the social partners. It was scheduled every month at the Prime Minister's office, where I sat with business leaders, the church leaders, and the various church organizations, not just one side of it. The business community, as I mentioned, the political opposition in the country, and the non-governmental organization, the labor unions representatives. We had these meetings, and we had always had minutes of the previous one and discuss issues and any other suggestion that they had, because we always believe that the government of the day does not have all the knowledge of what is necessary to bring development to the country. So they are the leaders, yes, but they have partners in the country that they can use officially to help build the country. So that those meetings, and I thought that was this present time requires an initiative of this nature. You have a number of people with expertise and who might be willing to provide the professional expertise to meet with and come up with ideas and ways in which you can reach people at a personal level to deal with this psychology of what is taking place and where they are and how you can provide that hope, which we believe is necessary, because it is something that worries me. I see what is happening to a lot of the young girls in the country, and where hopelessness exists, and some of them might be tempted to take decisions that can permanently destroy themselves, in every sense of the word. And the young men also find themselves, wherever you pass, you meet a bunch of gambling activities, which can send a wrong message. I mean, I am not the one who will say that you should not be doing some social activities that gives you fun, whether it's the issue of playing cards, dominoes, or something. But to use that as a way of life all day, it must be frightening. It means that they sense there's nothing else available. And it seems to me that's that's why the Youth Vibes program, Youth on the Blocks, that's Sister Kate and the New National Party head had initiated, how effective they were because you gave them some things to do. They were being paid stipends at the end of the month, so they were able to have something to look forward to at the end of the month and to able to help themselves and their families going forward. Oh, a lot of these programs and a lot of the initiatives in jobs, temporary jobs, we created. In fact, we had thousands of the people in several times during the year. Thousands of people on the roads. Now you see the grass is literally taking over the streets in the country. And those persons were able to take care of their families and to provide something for their young ones that they had responsibility for. So all these things were helpful in helping young people and families to have hope. But you don't see that today. So clearly we know the impact of this. You see the rise in cost of living, the business almost dead in the country, whether it's the retail sector or the wholesale sector. You see this, people are all crying out the lack of economic activity in the country. The only group of people that seem to be enjoying themselves is those in government, people living nice, and their friends close to them. Other than that, you don't see that widespread in the country as a whole. So it's something that this government, unfortunately, have created, and something they should take responsibility for correcting. But knowing the arrogance of that group, I don't see anything changing. Period. I don't see changing. So we as citizens may have to take steps forward outside of the government to look at ways in which we can help to alleviate some of the problems. But that's the government. Doing that without government would not be as effective as if we had government involved.
I agree. Doc, as we close, I just want to ask you, as a true lover of cricket, what advice would you give to Grenadians as we get ready to host the upcoming test match between Australia and the West Indies in July?
Well, I've always, as you said, a love of cricket. And before I come here today, I spent 2 hours watching the test match between England and India. And as you know, they're 2 of the top teams there. Last week, I watched 5 days of the official international test match between South Africa and Australia. They call it the ultimate test that determined the #1 test team in the world. And South Africa prevailed. I was very happy for them. So since we were young, I had a serious attraction to the sport. So knowing that when we initiated a stadium, the opposition, knowing NDC government, attacked us and said it's a waste of money. We should build a hotel with the money, as if they don't know that's the investment in the young people, the hope of the country. That's why we had the Kirani James and the Royal Lewises, the Devon Smith develop the facilities that you build around the country. You have to create opportunities for young people to use their skills. We would have lost a lot of brilliant talent in all, whether it's athletics, whether it's soccer, whether it's tennis, whether it's cricket. We've lost that over the years. We're not having the facilities to help develop those skills. And therefore, we saw this as important and a challenge for any government. And that's why we invested heavily. And today, the same people who criticize it are the one using and not even recognizing the value of the previous government as far as those facilities were concerned. So I'm very happy to see it. The first time Australia came here, we were in government, and we had literally over 20,000 people at the stadium. And when a one-day match that was played between West Indies and Australia, and I would never forget this because it was a special time for the country. So I welcome the opportunity to host. Clearly, the West Indies is certainly not as competitive as they were then, but it's still it's something that I believe it's still cricket at the highest level. And I certainly suggest and call on all Grenadians and cricket lovers and people who love sports and love to see young talented cricketers and so on, to come in and give their support. I would certainly be there myself, because I would love to see some of the talent that is on display in Australia and the Caribbean at this particular time. So I look forward, and I congratulate the West Indies Cricket Board bringing that test match here, and of course for the government for accepting the responsibility to host. I look forward to it.
Oh, we agree. That's all the time we have today, folks. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Show them